Brothers and sisters, sons and daughters of Africa, today we gather not as beggars at the table of nations, but as the rightful heirs of a land that has known pain, conquest, and humiliation, yet still stands unbroken. For too long the world has spoken down to us, dictating terms, issuing commands, and prescribing paths as though we were children unable to chart our own course. They call their words resolutions, recommendations, and roadmaps, but we know what they truly are, chains wrapped in polite language. When the United Nations raised its voice and told Africa what to do, we listened not with obedience, but with memory. We remembered the centuries when our lands were carved up without our consent, when our resources were looted under banners of progress, and when our people were reduced to statistics of suffering in reports authored in distant capitals. We remembered how many times we were told that foreign armies on our soil were for our own protection, that foreign corporations digging our gold, our oil, and our rare earths were for our development, that foreign institutions lending us money at crippling interest were for our own growth. Each time the promises were written with ink, but the reality was written with blood. So when once again we were told what to do, the answer was clear. The answer was no. Not because we reject dialogue, not because we reject cooperation, but because we reject subjugation masquerading as partnership. We reject the presumption that Africa's destiny can be scripted outside Africa. Our refusal is not defiance for its own sake. It is survival. It is dignity. It is sovereignty. For we know that every nation that sits proudly today among the so-called great powers did so by refusing to bow, by saying no when the world demanded submission. Why then should Africa be the exception? Why should we be forever lectured about democracy by those who supported dictatorships on our soil? Why should we be forever instructed on peace by those who profited from war in our lands? Why should we be forever guided on development by those whose wealth is the direct inheritance of our stolen labor and resources? We have learned that to accept their instructions blindly is to perpetuate our chains. The time has come to tear away those chains, to tell the world that Africa is not a laboratory for experiments, nor a playground for foreign powers, nor a pawn on the chessboard of global geopolitics. Africa is a continent of sovereign peoples, and our future will be written by our own hands. When the UN told us what to do, it forgot that Africa is not one voice begging for validation. It is many voices, diverse and strong, united by history and struggle, from the deserts of the north to the forests of the center, from the coasts of the west to the mountains of the east and the savannas of the south. We are bound together by the shared memory of conquest and the shared hunger for freedom. And when we say no, it is not a whisper, it is a thunder heard across oceans. But let us be clear, our no is not a rejection of the world. We are not isolationists. We do not seek walls. We seek respect. We seek genuine partnership built on equality, not hierarchy. We will trade, but not on terms that strip us bare. We will cooperate, but not under conditions that demand our silence. We will join in global efforts, but not when those efforts are designed to keep us at the bottom of the ladder. Our no is a declaration of adulthood. The era of paternalism is over. The world must understand that Africa is not an infant to be fed instructions, but a mother of civilization, the cradle of humanity, and the beating heart of tomorrow. For the future the world dreams of, prosperous, sustainable, secure, cannot exist without Africa standing tall and free. When we refused, some called it arrogance, some said we were ungrateful, as if sovereignty is a gift handed down and not a right inherent in every nation. Some threatened us with sanctions, with isolation, with the withdrawal of aid, but we say to them, you cannot sanction a people's dignity. You cannot isolate a continent that is rich with humanity and resources. You cannot starve a people who have survived the harshest winters of history and still rise with hope. Africa has given too much already. We have given our minerals to power their industries, our land to feed their populations, our waters to cool their machines, and our sons and daughters to fight their wars. We will give no more in silence. If the world wants cooperation, let it be fair. If the world wants friendship, let it be mutual. If the world wants progress, let it be shared. To say no is not to close doors, it is to open the right ones. It is to say yes to our farmers who demand fair prices for their crops. It is to say yes to our workers who demand jobs with dignity. It is to say yes to our youth who demand education that equips them for the future, not education that prepares them only to serve foreign masters. It is to say yes to our entrepreneurs who demand the freedom to innovate without being crushed by unfair competition. Africa's no is an affirmation of Africa's yes to justice, to dignity, to unity, to freedom. We have tried the other path. We tried obedience. We tried compliance. We tried patience. What did it bring us? Debts that strangle us, wars that divide us, poverty that humiliates us. No more. And let the world hear this. Africa does not seek permission to be free. Freedom is not granted. It is taken. Independence is not negotiated. It is asserted. Dignity is not begged for, it is lived. And so our no was not a request to be heard, it was a statement of fact. To the doubters we say, watch us reclaim our resources and use them for our people. Watch us build industries that add value rather than exporting raw materials. Watch us raise schools and universities that teach our children pride in their identity. Watch us develop armies that defend our borders, not to threaten others but to guarantee that never again will foreign boots march uninvited on our soil. Watch us chart an African century not as a slogan but as a reality. Yes, there will be obstacles. Yes, there will be those who resist our rise. Yes, there will be internal betrayals and external pressures. But every no we utter is a brick in the foundation of the new Africa. Every act of resistance is a seed planted in the soil of freedom. Every sacrifice made by our martyrs is a torch passed to the living. The UN told us what to do. We said no. And in that no lies the birth of our future. For a continent that says no to domination says yes to self-determination. A continent that says no to dependency says yes to sovereignty. A continent that says no to humiliation says yes to dignity. And a continent that says no to foreign command says yes to unity. Africa rejects external command. Africa refuses to let the UN or any external power dictate its path. The continent asserts sovereignty and rejects paternalism, disguised as partnership. No to subjugation, yes to true partnership. Saying no is not rejection of the world, but a rejection of unfair terms. Africa demands respect, equality, and cooperation that benefits its people. Dignity over dependence. Sanctions, aid, threats, or isolation cannot break Africa's spirit. Freedom, dignity, and sovereignty are rights, not favors handed down by others. Africa's no is Africa's yes. The refusal to obey dictates is an affirmation of justice, unity, self-reliance, and development driven by Africans for Africans. A new era of self-determination. The no symbolizes the beginning of an African century where resources serve the people, industries grow locally, and destiny is written by African hands. Africa rejects external command because its destiny cannot be dictated from foreign podiums, glass towers, or conference rooms oceans away. For too long, outside institutions have assumed the authority to design policies for Africa, to write programs on its behalf, and to decide what is best for its people. This is not partnership, it is paternalism disguised in polite language. The rejection of such commands is not arrogance, but the simple assertion of a truth that the dignity of nations is non-negotiable. Every people, every continent, every culture deserves the right to decide its own path, to craft its own future, and to determine how it governs, feeds, and develops itself. Africa is no exception. When Africa says no to external commands, it does so from centuries of experience with colonization, manipulation, and exploitation. History has proven that instructions from abroad rarely serve the common people of the continent. Instead, they tend to safeguard the interests of those who give the orders. Whether under the banner of development aid, humanitarian intervention, or global governance, the essence of these dictates often remains the same: control. Africa has learned that submission to external dictates means surrendering resources, sovereignty, and decision-making power. To reject these orders is therefore to protect the independence so dearly won through decades of anti-colonial struggle. This rejection does not mean isolation. Africa is not shutting its doors to the world, nor is it refusing cooperation. Instead, it is demanding respect. Genuine partnership is rooted in dialogue, not command. It grows from equality, not hierarchy. Africa is ready to engage with every nation and every institution, but only on terms that recognize its sovereignty and honor its right to say no. The continent's refusal to bow is an invitation to build new forms of cooperation, cooperation that uplifts people rather than drains them. By rejecting external command, Africa sends a message to its own citizens and to the world: the time of subjugation is over. The age of dictated policies is behind us. No power, no institution, no international assembly has the right to speak louder than the voice of the African people. This is not only a declaration of independence repeated, but a declaration of dignity renewed. The message is clear: Africa will no longer walk under shadows of foreign masters. It will stand in the light of its own freedom, guided by its own people, and answer only to its own destiny. When Africa says no to subjugation, it is rejecting an old order that has always sought to control rather than collaborate, to command rather than consult. Subjugation has worn many masks: colonialism, neo-colonial policies, unfair trade deals, predatory loans, and programs that come wrapped in the language of aid, but function as shackles. Each mask has carried the same underlying intent: to keep Africa dependent, vulnerable, and subordinate. To this, Africa now answers with a firm refusal. The answer is not a timid whisper but a thunderous declaration: no more. No more dictates, no more contracts signed in darkness that sell out generations, no more agreements that enrich others while impoverishing the very people they claim to help. But the rejection of subjugation is not a rejection of the world. It is, in fact, the opposite. Africa is not saying leave us alone, but rather treat us as equals. The continent extends its hand to those who come in honesty, transparency, and respect. This is what true partnership means: dialogue where every voice is heard, not dictated over. Agreements that benefit all parties, not just one. Collaborations that uplift communities instead of extracting from them. A real partnership sees Africa not as a problem to fix, but as a partner to engage with. A continent with resources, talent, creativity, and ideas to contribute to humanity. True partnership must also recognize that Africa's priority is its people. It means building schools and industries, not debt traps, encouraging local innovation, not flooding markets with imports that kill domestic production, strengthening health systems, not using them as laboratories for foreign agendas. Partnership must be guided by dignity, fairness, and reciprocity, not exploitation. Those who truly wish to work with Africa must accept that the era of commanding is finished. The only way forward is cooperation on equal ground. By choosing partnership over subjugation, Africa is charting a course where unity and sovereignty meet global collaboration. This choice proclaims to the world that Africa is not seeking isolation, but demanding fairness. It will welcome alliances, trade, technology, and cultural exchange, but only when they respect its sovereignty and advance its people's interests. Subjugation is slavery in a new disguise. Partnership is freedom clothed in respect. That is the distinction Africa insists upon, and that is the vision it is ready to defend at all costs. Dignity is the foundation upon which true freedom stands, and Africa has declared that it will not trade that dignity for dependence. For generations, external powers have tried to convince African nations that survival requires obedience, that prosperity can only flow from aid packages, conditional loans, and dictated reforms. But dependence is not prosperity, it is another name for control. It creates a cycle where resources are drained, sovereignty is weakened, and decisions are made to satisfy donors rather than citizens. To break this cycle, Africa has chosen dignity. Dependence undermines the very soul of a nation. A people who must always stretch out their hands cannot build with strength, cannot plan with certainty, cannot speak with full voice. Foreign aid has often come with hidden chains, directives about governance, restrictions on spending, or demands that favor outside interests over local needs. This is not generosity. It is a tool of influence. Africa's refusal to remain trapped in this system is not a denial of assistance, but a redefinition of it. Support must empower, not enslave. Help must build capacity, not reinforce weakness. Choosing dignity over dependence does not mean rejecting the world. It means engaging with it from a position of equality and strength, It means developing local industries so Africa is no longer forced to export raw materials at cheap prices only to import finished goods at high costs. It means investing in education, health, and infrastructure so that solutions to Africa's challenges are born within Africa itself. It means building financial independence through regional trade and continental cooperation so that budgets are not balanced by the goodwill of institutions that do not share Africa's struggles. Dignity gives confidence. It allows nations to speak boldly at international tables, not as petitioners but as partners. It ensures that when Africa says yes, it is a choice born of free will, and when it says no, it is a stand rooted in sovereignty. Dependence silences, but dignity gives voice. Dependence bends the knee, but dignity makes a people stand tall. Africa's decision to embrace dignity is therefore not symbolic. It is practical, urgent, and revolutionary. It is a call to its people to believe in their own strength, to trust their own institutions, and to rise above centuries of manipulation. The world may try to lure Africa back into dependency with promises of aid, but the continent has learned that true wealth comes not from what is given, but from what is built by its own hands. When Africa says no to dictates from outside, it is not merely rejecting something, it is affirming something far deeper. That no is in truth a yes to justice, a yes to dignity, a yes to sovereignty, and a yes to the right of its people to determine their own future. Too often outsiders mistake Africa's resistance as isolationism, as if a refusal to obey is a refusal to engage. But Africa's no is not a wall, it is a doorway to a new kind of engagement, one that begins with respect and ends with mutual growth. This no is a yes to self-reliance. It is a commitment to strengthen local economies, to build industries that transform raw resources into finished products at home, and to ensure that the wealth of the land nourishes its own children first. Each time Africa says no to an exploitative contract, it is saying yes to fairer trade. Each time it says no to conditional aid that undermines sovereignty, it is saying yes to policies that empower citizens. This is not rejection for rejection's sake, it is affirmation of an alternative path. It is also a yes to unity. Africa's refusal to be divided and ruled again is a declaration that the continent is stronger when its nations stand together. When Africa says no to foreign manipulation, it is saying yes to continental cooperation, regional alliances, and homegrown solutions. It is an embrace of the idea that true strength lies not in obeying external commands, but in trusting the power of collective will. Africa's no is equally a yes to accountability before its own people. To reject dictates from abroad is to affirm that the only legitimate authority over Africa's destiny is the voice of its citizens. This is a commitment to governance that listens inward rather than outward, to decisions that prioritize schools, hospitals, and livelihoods over compliance with foreign agendas. It is a yes to leadership that serves the people rather than external masters. Ultimately, Africa's no is a yes to freedom. It is a yes to a future where choices are not imposed, but made by Africans themselves. It is a yes to standing tall among nations as an equal, not as a dependent. The word no, spoken with conviction, transforms into a resounding yes, a yes to life, to pride, and to the unyielding right to self-determination. A new era of self-determination has dawned on Africa, not as a dream whispered in silence, but as a reality declared with boldness. For centuries, the destiny of this continent was scripted by others, colonial powers that carved borders without consent, foreign institutions that imposed policies without consultation, and external actors that extracted resources without accountability. But today, the tide has shifted. Africa is taking the pen back into its own hands, writing its story with the ink of sovereignty, unity, and resolve. This is more than political independence. It is the awakening of a continent determined to govern itself fully, without apology and without permission. Self-determination means Africa will no longer allow its development agenda to be dictated from foreign capitals. It means the priorities of the continent will rise from the voices of its farmers, workers, teachers, and youth, not from distant boardrooms where Africa is too often treated as an object of policy rather than a subject of power. It is a pledge that the land, resources, and futures of Africans belong first to Africans. The era of waiting for instructions, approval, or validation from others is over. The new era is one of ownership, of destiny, of choices, and of possibilities. This new era is also a return to dignity. Self-determination is not isolation, but empowerment. It is about engaging with the world from a position of equality where partnerships are forged through respect rather than subordination. It is a rejection of the old model of dependency where progress was promised in exchange for submission. Instead, Africa is stepping into global spaces as a builder, not a beggar, as a contributor, not a dependent. It is asserting that it can cooperate without surrendering, that it can welcome allies without bowing to masters. At the heart of this transformation lies the spirit of the people. Self-determination is not a gift granted by others. It is a right claimed by those who refuse to be silenced. It is expressed in the courage of youth demanding better futures, in the resilience of communities reclaiming their resources, and in the unity of nations choosing cooperation over division. This is Africa's inheritance and its responsibility to rise, to lead, and to prove that freedom once won must be lived fully. The new era of self-determination is irreversible. It is the dawn of a continent that no longer asks for space at the table but builds its own. Africa is no longer following, it is leading. It is no longer waiting, it is advancing. This is the Africa of tomorrow born today.